On August 31st, 2014, Reddit was literally flooded with images. But these were no ordinary photos. It was one of the loudest digital scandals of the decade, a massive leak of intimate celebrity pictures. And it wasn't just about media personalities, but the most recognizable and influential stars of that time. These shots were never intended for public eyes. In just 24 hours, one of the subreddits gained over 100,000 subscribers. The photographs spread with such speed that it was as if an uncontrollable fire had broken out on the internet. It was already impossible to stop. Millions of people saw images of Jennifer Lawrence, and it was her photos that went the most viral. At that moment, she was one of the highest paid actresses in Hollywood. After the triumph of the Hunger Games franchise, her name became a global brand, and she herself became a symbol of a new era in cinema. Interest in her name skyrocketed instantly. Google searches surged to extreme values, and the discussion didn't stop day or night. For a while, the photos were even mentioned on her Wikipedia page. The stars' reactions were chaotic and desperate. Some immediately claimed the photos were fake. Others threw all their energy into stopping the distribution and deleting the images from the web. But the internet had already done its work. A week later, Reddit began mass blocking the posts, but it was too late. As soon as one platform was shut down, dozens of new sites, mirrors, and archives appeared in its place. The scandal, dubbed the Fappening, didn't leave the front pages for weeks. It dominated the news, destroyed reputations, and turned into a true digital nightmare. The main question remained unanswered. Who was behind this? And most terrifyingly, how exactly did they manage to gain access to these photos? A real hunt began for those behind the leak. But to understand where it all started, one must know one thing: what 4chan is. 4chan is not just a forum. For the internet, it is an almost mythical place, a kind of foundation for digital anarchy. It was from here that anonymous, trolling culture, endless memes, and entire internet movements that later conquered the world grew. Everything was discussed on the platform, from anime and video games to politics, technology, and literature. But the main feature was something else: absolute anonymity. Users could post anything without revealing their identity. This is exactly why 4chan had long become a place where the internet's darkest content flourished. Shock content, pornography, leaks, and everything that rarely reaches the surface. In 2014, the forum had over 22 million monthly visitors. It was a true underground metropolis of the web. It was there, in late August, that intimate photos of famous actresses and singers first began to surface, days before the subreddit appeared, weeks before the scandal would get a name and capture the world's media. This meant the source was even deeper. The trail led further, into even darker layers of the internet. There was another forum, AnonIB. Outwardly, it resembled 4chan, the same anonymous posts, the same threads, the same chaotic structure. But its reputation was much filthier. If 4chan was a gray zone, AnonIB had long been considered explicitly toxic territory. The main purpose of the site was the distribution of explicit photos and videos without consent. Users often posted intimate materials of their former partners there, out of revenge, humiliation, or simply for attention, what later became known as revenge porn. In many countries, such activity was already considered a criminal offense, including the UK, Canada, and most US states. But in the anonymous corners of the internet, laws worked poorly, and that was where the first real lead of the investigation now led. On August 26th, a message appeared on AnonIB that many initially took for just another fake. One of the users wrote that several forum members had hit a real jackpot. But it wasn't about the leaked photos of ex-girlfriends or random intimate shots typical for such platforms. This time, the stakes were completely different. Intimate materials of one of the most famous stars in the world, and not just photos. According to the author, there were explicit shots, personal videos, and entire archives of content belonging to one of the most popular celebrities of that time. "See for yourselves. I don't have them, but everyone says they're real," he wrote. Initially, the forum met this with typical disbelief. Fakes appeared on AnonIB too often to believe every loud claim. But then new images began to surface. First one actress, then another, then dozens. And skepticism quickly shifted to hype. Users began offering trades, deals, and direct purchases. Some saw this not just as a sensation, but as an opportunity to make money. Real digital collectors. They bought up archives from various users in bulk, assembling full sets of images to later resell them at a higher price, already as exclusive collections on Anon-IB, 4chan, and other shadow platforms. Cropped screenshots of desktops were published as bait, dozens of folders, file previews, fragments of archives. One user claimed he was going to sell more than 60 photos of Jennifer Lawrence, along with a personal video. Many were certain this smelled like big money, a real gold rush of the digital age. But for most, this plan quickly collapsed. As one user known as Original Guy later wrote, "People just wanted everything for free. I got about $120 to my Bitcoin address, but considering how much time went into mining this material, it's not even close to what I was expecting." They hope to get rich. But the internet always works by one rule. If something can be leaked, it will definitely be leaked for free. And on August 31st, 2014, someone made a decision that destroyed the entire black market with one click of a button. The entire collection appeared on 4chan, completely. No paywall, no deals, no restrictions. Perhaps Original Guy did it himself, or perhaps it was someone else who just decided to get ahead of the rest. The next day, Original Guy published a new message. He claimed he was not the main organizer of the leak. According to him, it was not the work of one person. It was a joint operation, the result of months of work by several people at once. A group, a system, a network. But was he telling the truth? Or was it just an attempt to hide his name while a real hunt for him was already beginning? Let's go back to that very first message. There was one important detail. The author wrote that some people from Stole were behind the big win. But what exactly is Stole? To understand the scale of the story, one needs to dig deeper. Stole was the name of a closed community within Anon-IB, not a public thread, not random forum chaos. It was a small, almost elite group of users united by one goal: hunting for other people's secrets. Inside were only 5 men. All of them lived in the USA, ages from 20 to 30. At first glance, perfectly ordinary people. A teacher from Virginia, a customer support employee from Chicago, a bank teller from Connecticut, an e-commerce worker from Lancaster, married, father of 2 children, and another 29-year-old guy from Chicago who, quite symbolically, still lived with his parents. Nothing in common with the image of genius hackers from the movies. No dark rooms, green code on screens, and people in hoodies. Just ordinary men with a very unusual hobby. They stole intimate celebrity photos. Not for fame, not for ideology, for the process itself. They exchanged stolen shots, collected them, discussed new prey, and built their own underground network for years. Most of the time, these materials were not even published openly. They were passed to each other directly, by email, through closed channels, in private messages. It was a closed club of digital collectors. And what was most dangerous, they felt absolutely invulnerable. In open discussions, participants calmly talked about their methods of obtaining photos, without fear, without caution, with full confidence that no one would ever be able to find them. But everything changed after the leak. It quickly became clear that most of the images were taken on the victim's own personal smartphones, most often on an iPhone. This meant that suspicion fell almost immediately on Apple and its cloud storage, iCloud. Many were certain a massive security breach had occurred, that someone found a loophole in iCloud and gained access to celebrities' personal data. Among those who spoke publicly was Kirsten Dunst, whose photos also ended up online. The day after the leak, she wrote just 2 words on Twitter: "Thank you, iCloud." And that was enough for suspicions against Apple to ignite worldwide. Apple reacted immediately. The company launched an internal investigation and published an official statement just 2 days later. The leak was indeed connected to iCloud accounts. However, it was not a massive hack of the system itself. The reason was much simpler and scarier: targeted attacks on specific people. When it comes to celebrities, most personal information is already on the surface. Date of birth, names of relatives, favorite places, answers to security questions that often protect accounts. Sometimes a few clicks are enough to get close to someone else's account. But the main weapon wasn't a hack. it was deception, phishing, fake emails and messages created so that the victim would hand over access to their account themselves. And that is likely how they got to Jennifer Lawrence. On August 9, 2014, 3 weeks before the global leak, she suddenly lost access to her iTunes via Apple ID. Problems also began with her email. Less than a week later, an iMessage arrived. Your Apple ID was used to sign into iCloud from an unknown device. If this was not you, change your password immediately. This was followed by a one-time code and a link supposedly from Apple Security. But it was not a message from Apple. It was a trap, a fake message created with one goal: to force her to reveal her real password. Neither Jennifer Lawrence herself nor her assistant could later remember exactly if they followed the link. But shortly after, the actress's most personal photos were in the hands of millions of people around the world. After the scandal, U.S. authorities, primarily the Federal Bureau of Investigation, began an urgent investigation. It took them a month to find the first serious lead. Investigators traced one IP address. From May 2013 to August 2014, it was used to access more than 500 iCloud accounts, a total of 2,362 logins. On October 10th, the internet provider revealed the owner's name. It was Emilio Herrera. 5 days later, agents arrived at an ordinary brick house on the south side of Chicago. The 29-year-old man lived there with his parents. No underground laboratory, no cyber empire, just a bedroom in his parents' house. But that was where the access to dozens of stolen accounts came from. Later, the investigation found 4 more participants. 29-year-old Edward Majurchik from Chicago used an address like appleprivacysecurity.@icloud.com for phishing, almost indistinguishable from the real one. This was the kind of address presumably used against Jennifer Lawrence. It was reported that he gained access to approximately 300 accounts, many of which belonged to celebrities. Ryan Collins, another participant in the scheme, applied the same technique. Through phishing, he penetrated at least 50 iCloud accounts and 72 mailboxes. George Garofano, a bank teller from Connecticut, and teacher Christopher Brennan from Virginia also ended up among the accused. Brennan turned out to be especially frightening. He hacked not only celebrities, but also people from his own life, colleagues, acquaintances, students, and even a minor relative. In the end, all 5 pleaded guilty to theft and exchanging images among themselves. But there was one problem. The Federal Bureau of Investigation could not prove that it was they who published the photos and launched them into open distribution. This meant the punishment was relatively mild. The most important question remained unanswered. Who exactly pressed the publish button? How did the photos get from Anon-IB to 4chan? Who was the mysterious original guy? Who were the first collectors who sold and posted the archives? These people disappeared. They were never found. To this day, no one has been convicted specifically for the publication and mass distribution of the shots. Later, the operators of Anon-IB also came under investigation. In 2018, the Dutch police discovered the forum's server on the country's territory. Shortly after, the site was shut down. But the scandal itself had already become part of internet history. And perhaps the most unsettling thing about this story is how primitive it all turned out to be. Not a brilliant hack, not a cyber weapon, not super hackers, just weak passwords, lack of two-factor protection, and one careless click on an unknown link. Sometimes, that is enough to ruin someone else's life. And the reaction of society was no less frightening. For millions of people, it was not a crime, but entertainment. Someone else's private life turned into free content, and in that moment, it became clear. On the internet, the privacy of celebrities, and sometimes any person, can be worth absolutely nothing.